Chapter 14. We shouldn't see each other again in the future. If you are enjoying these audio reads, please like and subscribe to the channel, and most importantly share with other fans of the BL community. Sheng Shaoyou rarely spent an entire night out. He had been in a good mood, but the moment he saw Hoyong's sorrowful face, his enthusiasm vanished, and his expression darkened. The driver was good at reading people's expressions and immediately found an excuse to leave, leaving Hoyong alone to face the obviously displeased Sheng Shaoyou. Hoyong neither asked nor said anything. Instead, he went to the kitchen and brought out a bowl of sobering soup for Sheng Shaoyou. The ingredients were readily available at home. The Sheng family's nutritionist was trained in traditional Chinese medicine, and ever since Sheng Shaoyou could remember, the household had never been without medicinal pastes and herbal decoctions. Chrysanthemum Garden. There was a touch of licorice in the sobering soup, so it shouldn't have tasted bitter. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, Sheng Shaoyou found the bitterness overwhelming and hard to swallow. Setting the bowl down, he softened his tone and teased the orchid. "Where did you go tonight? How was the dinner gathering?" Hoyong stood before the sofa, looking down at him from above. The soft lighting in the living room cast most of his face in shadow, making his eyes unreadable. However, his lips were pressed into a straight line, and his expression carried an inexplicable coldness, which made Sheng Shaoyou feel annoyed. "A Korean restaurant." "It was okay, not very fun," Hua said. His voice was naturally soft, and he always spoke slowly, exactly the kind of tone and cadence Sheng Shaoyou liked the most. Nevertheless, at this moment, though his speed hadn't changed, but for some reason, his words carried an intense sense of oppression, it was enough to make an S-level alpha like Sheng Shaoyou feel offended. His scalp tingled, his hands and feet turned cold, and a faint chill crept down his spine. Almost instinctively, he released a subtle thread of oppressive pheromones. "And what about you, Mr. Sheng?" Sheng Shaoyou controlled his strength, keeping the pheromones concentration relatively low. Hua Yong didn't seem too affected. Instead, he took a few steps closer, his face emotionless as he asked, "Coming back so late, where did you go?" "Don't ask what you shouldn't." Sheng Shaoyou's face darkened. He loathed Omegas who acted spoiled just because they were favored. If it weren't for the fact that the person in front of him was Hua Yong, someone who suited his taste perfectly, he would have told him to get lost already. "I shouldn't ask." Hua Yong let out a light laugh, but his expression only grew colder. "Such a strong Omega scent, I could smell it even through the door." "Mr. Sheng, have you been marked by Omega?" If one wanted to enrage an S-level alpha, telling him he had been marked was undoubtedly the fastest way. S-level alphas were the natural kings of pheromones, standing at the pinnacle of human physiology. In modern warfare, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that S-level oppressive pheromones were practically considered biological weapons. Even on the battlefield, an unarmed S-level alpha could rely solely on the overwhelming physiological advantage to make all lower-ranking alphas and omegas collapse to their knees. As long as the pheromone concentration was high enough, even if the opponent had a gun, it would be useless, because they wouldn't even have the strength to pull the trigger. Under the crushing weight of a powerful pheromone oppression, lower-leveled enemies often couldn't even move their fingers, and Sheng Shaoyou was exactly that kind of alpha. Saying he had been marked by an Omega was undoubtedly an utter humiliation. Sheng Shaoyou's expression turned completely cold. "Hua Yong," he said, "don't mistake your place. My affairs are none of your concern." Hua Yong stared at him in a daze, his gaze so unfamiliar as if he suddenly didn't recognize the man before him. He stood in silence for a long time before finally nodding with moist eyes. "Mr. Sheng is right. Then, I'll head back to my room first. Good night, see you tomorrow." Sheng Shaoyou grabbed his arm. A ridiculous thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He suspected that Hua Yong probably hadn't slept at all. The skin of his exposed forearm, peeking out from beneath his robe, was ice cold, the kind of chill that only came from sitting up and waiting all night. He had been waiting for Sheng Shaoyou to come home. Sheng Shaoyou's heart softened in an instant. Thinking that Omegas always needed to be coaxed, he parted his lips, ready to comfort Hua Yong. But the ever-indifferent young Master Sheng, who rarely had the patience to coax anyone, didn't even get the chance to perform his grand gesture. Hua Yong's seemingly slender and fair fingers turned out to be quite strong as he forcefully pried Sheng Shaoyou's fingers off his hand. The delicate yet stubborn orchid bit his lip, said nothing, and silently retreated to his room. In the following days, though they still lived under the same roof, Sheng Shaoyou surprisingly didn't encounter him even once. Breakfast, cookies, and dinner still appeared on the dining table on time. Yet Hua Yong seemed to have installed some kind of precision tracking system. No matter what, he always managed to avoid Sheng Shaoyou perfectly. The faint elegance and of orchids still lingered in the apartment, drifting subtly through every corner, yet the person himself was nowhere to be seen. Sheng Shaoyou endured it for 4 days. On the 5th day, he finally lost patience. After work, he returned home and stood at the entrance, only to find that the only light left on was the dining room. The vast, empty apartment was devoid of any sign of life. Instantly furious, he slapped the door with a thunderous bang. Then Sheng Shaoyou stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Fuck this. Who the hell is he pulling this attitude for? If he doesn't want to see me, then fine. Such a big jar of jealousy, I've neither the patience nor the desire to deal with it. Whoever wants to cater to him can go ahead. I'm done. AOP Zing-san, but he had barely taken a few steps when his phone buzzed. He glanced down. It was a message from Hua Yong. Synchronized swimming. Mr. Sheng, thank you very much for your care these past few days. Sheng Shaoyou stomped furiously toward the exit, but as soon as he read that first line, his steps halted. His right eye twitched violently, and sure enough, as he scrolled down, he saw even more messages that stabbed straight into his heart. Synchronized swimming. After thinking it over, I realized that it's indeed quite inappropriate to keep bothering you. I've already found another place to stay. Dinner is on the table. I'll be moving out today. Also, I will repay your money on time. But if there's nothing important, we shouldn't see each other again in the future. OBWDRN. Moving out? Moving where? Besides here, where the fuck does he want to go? The door that was slammed shut with a loud bang was pushed open 7 minutes later by the owner of the house with a dark expression. This time, the living room lights were on. Hoyong stood by the entrance, dressed in the light-colored turtleneck sweater that Sheng Shaoyou liked best on him. Half of his face was tucked into the high collar. Hearing the sound of Sheng Shaoyou's return, he turned around in surprise. Sheng Shaoyou glanced at his startled expression, then at the trolley suitcase in his hand. His face turned even darker. Where are you going? Mr. Sheng. Hoyong's voice was hesitant. After just a few days apart, he seemed even thinner. The exposed skin of his wrist looked even more fragile than ever, his fingers gripping the suitcase handle so tightly that his knuckles had turned red. He looked so pitiful, like a stray animal being mercilessly thrown back onto the street by the manager of a temporary shelter. Clearly, he was the one trying to run away without a word, so why did he make it seem like someone was forcing him to do so? I can take this chance to thank you in person. Hoyong parted the lips that had not long ago been kissed fervently by Sheng Shaoyou and softly drew a line between them. Thank you for taking care of me these past few days, Mr. Sheng. Goodbye. As he said that, he grabbed the handle of his suitcase and walked toward the door without even looking up. Sheng Shaoyou leaned against the door frame, hands in his pockets, acting indifferent. He waited until Hua Yong had truly stepped out the door before suddenly speaking. You come and go as you please. What do you take this place for? A shelter. Hua Yong turned his face slightly to glance at him, eyes red. The little creature who had briefly taken refuge in his home seemed to deeply regret his decision. Regret that he hadn't chosen an actual shelter from the start and had instead made the mistake of choosing Sheng Shaoyou's vacant apartment. I'm sorry. He set down his suitcase, his voice thick with a nasal tone, yet he asked calmly and gently, Then what do you want me to do? Yes, what did he want? What exactly did he want? Sheng Shaoyou frowned, thinking about it for a moment. He realized that what he wanted was actually quite simple. He wanted Hua Yong to always stay obediently in the place he designated. He wanted Hua Yong to be at home every day, waiting for him to return. To prepare his breakfast, bake those little cookies, and make dinner, Sheng Shaoyou wanted Hua Yong to tell him to be careful on the road each morning. To call him around noon when he wasn't too busy, just to ask what he had for lunch. To have dinner together in the evening, after which Hua Yong would stand up to clear the dishes and chopsticks while casually sharing what he had done throughout the day. To discuss with him whether or not they should add an extra spoonful of salt to the soup when making it in the evening. For Hua Yong's sake, Sheng Shaoyou could put up with those dull, mundane conversations, occasionally finding some heartwarming joy amidst the ordinary. Sheng Shaoyou wanted Hua Yong to become a part of his home. just like an orchid placed in a vase, quietly adorning his space. Yes, exactly like that. An orchid that would never take the initiative to leave, one that would remain, decorating Sheng Shaoyou's life and mood.垂涎ABO, because Hua Yong was beautiful, gentle, and seemed to truly like and rely on Sheng Shaoyou, his presence made Sheng Shaoyou's life better. When he wasn't sulking or throwing a tantrum, Hua Yong made every day feel pleasant for Sheng Shaoyou, so Sheng Shaoyou didn't want to let him go. Hua Yong stood a short distance away, looking at him directly. His face was tense, his skin carrying a cold, almost frosty sheen. Even his normally calm expression now seemed distant. Sheng Shaoyou had never been looked at like this before in his entire life, especially not by Hua Yong. His heart clenched, and when he spoke, his words came out sharper than intended. What do I want? Does it even matter what I want? Hua Yong's tense expression dimmed instantly. His gaze dropped to the floor. No, he said. Let's just forget about meeting again. Why? Sheng Shaoyou crossed his arms, looking at him coldly, a mocking edge in his voice. Tired of playing this love game with me, just kissing but never taking you to bed? The tall alpha curled his lips into a smirk. Pressing on with a sneer, or had you found an alpha willing to mark you permanently? Hua Yong's head snapped up instantly, eyes wide with panic. The shock in his gaze was so raw it almost felt like pain. It took him a long moment before he rasped out, "No." As he spoke, tears slowly welled up in his eyes. Sheng Shaoyou was caught completely off guard. His relaxed posture shifted, pulling away his back from the doorframe. The young and handsome alpha straightened up in a hurry, suddenly uneasy. "Hey," he called out, his voice tinged with nervousness. These beautiful yet fragile tears once again confirmed that, even now, Hua Yong was still the Omega he liked most. Just a single tear from him could send a numb, tingling ache through Sheng Shaoyou's chest. The sight of his orchid weeping was as heartbreakingly beautiful as ever. His choked voice, caught somewhere between his throat and nasal passage, sounded like a sorrowful lament. "We can't keep going like this anymore. Because I like you very much." Like me? Sheng Shaoyou stared at him, at a complete loss for words. Because he liked him, they couldn't keep seeing each other? What kind of ridiculous reasoning was that? But Hua Yong's expression was filled with such raw pain that it seemed as though Sheng Shaoyou's cruel questioning had coated both his heart and his eyes with tears, making him weep together in silent agony. This Omega stood before him, shedding quiet tears, yet the impact of it on Sheng Shaoyou was far greater than his any ex-lovers who had sobbed and wailed during breakups. "I don't want to go on like this anymore," he cried. "Because I like you too much. The moment I think about you hugging another Omega, I become ugly with jealousy. I turn into someone I don't even recognize." Transparent tears fell one by one onto the floor, glistening trails sliding past lips that should have been curved into sweet dimples. Instead, he murmured bitterly, "I'm truly awful. So, Mr. Sheng, let's just end this. Let's not see each other ever again in the future. I'll bless you from a place where I can see you. I wish you happiness." "Wish me happiness?" That orchid, drenched in shimmering tears, its petals weighed down by dewdrops, turned to leave as soon as he finished speaking. But Sheng Xiaoyu grabbed hold of him in one swift motion. "You've only spoken half your words. Where do you think you're going?" "I said everything I needed to." Hua Yong struggled to pull his wrist free from his grip, yet Sheng Xiaoyu held him firmly and refused to let go. "But I haven't agreed." The resistance in Hua Yong's movements weakened. The orchid stood frozen in the elevator hall, staring at him as if he had just heard a fantastical tale. He didn't speak again. For once, Sheng Xiaoyu showed patience, the most he had ever shown in relationship. He softened his tone, coaxing, "It's a bit cold outside. Let's go back inside and talk slowly, all right?" Nevertheless, the orchid shook his head. His grip on the suitcase tightened. "If you have something to say, just say it here." Sheng Shaoyu, who had intended to solve this with a quick compromise, found himself completely at a loss. He had never encountered such resistance in his life. Yet, he still reined in his temper and coaxed again. "This isn't something that can be explained in just a sentence or two. Don't be difficult. Come back with me. Be good." And so, the orchid that wanted to run away from home was eventually coaxed back by him. Once the door shut behind them, Sheng Shaoyou inexplicably felt a sense of relief. Hua Yong sat on a high stool by the kitchen island, head lowered, lost in thought. Sheng Shaoyou walked over, but Hua Yong still didn't look up at him. His chin was tucked into the collar of his sweater, and the tip of his delicate, well-shaped nose was tinged red. He looked utterly pitiful. Sheng Shaoyou, in rare act of grace, personally poured him a cup of warm water. Hua Yong reached out to take it, murmuring a quiet, "Thank you, Mr. Sheng." Yet his eyes remained fixed on the cup, still unwilling to meet Sheng Xiaoyou's gaze. Sheng Shaoyou suddenly found himself missing the way Hua Yong used to look at him with a soft smile. Murmuring "Thank you, Mr. Sheng" in that gentle tone. It hadn't even been that long, but it already felt like a lifetime ago. The little orchid seemed a little embarrassed himself. After all, he had just shed tears over Sheng Xiaoyou's well-known philandering. At this moment, it felt inappropriate to keep crying. The rising steam from the ceramic cup softened his gaze, melting away the coldness and restoring that familiar tenderness, so much so that Sheng Xiaoyou liked it, felt his heart soften at the sight. It even made him, for once, feel indulgent enough to think, next time, after being with someone else, I should at least take the time to shower before coming home. Otherwise, if this orchid finds out, he'll cry again. Hua Yong probably understood that Sheng Xiaoyou's so-called "let's go back inside and talk slowly" had merely been an excuse. There was nothing left for them to discuss. Beyond fleeting affection, Sheng Xiaoyou had nothing to offer him. He couldn't give Hua Yong a promise, couldn't give Hua Yong mark. He couldn't even coax Hua Yong with a lilac for you. I'll never hold anyone else again. Because Sheng Shaoyou was simply that kind of alpha, one who refused to be tied down by any omega. When he was gentle, it felt as if he could pluck the stars from the sky for you, but when he was cold-hearted, it was as if even the grass beneath the feet held more value than you did. Sheng Shaoyou was a libertine by nature, treating life like a game. His taste in lovers was consistent, unremarkable, predictable. He was both a devoted man and a promiscuous playboy. He had had far more ex-lovers than an entire football team, indulging in the kind of debauched lifestyle Hoyong loathed most, one where he could climb into bed with all sorts of people he didn't even like, eyes shut, without a care. And yet, for all his callousness, Sheng Xiaoyou had soft heart. At crucial moments, he was always very, very kind and gentle. More importantly, it seemed Sheng Shaoyou was also reluctant to let Hua Yong go. Such a Sheng Shaoyou was someone Hua Yong found impossible to give up on. Someone he couldn't help but keep liking. The last stretch of a 100-mile journey is the hardest. Life is like that, and so is love. A person who never takes risks will always end up empty-handed. And Hua Yong had always been among the best in the ranks of those who endured hardships and waited patiently for the moment. He knew he would definitely win.